Hello and welcome to Backstage with Gig Performer. My name is Brett Pontecorvo. You might know me from Backstage or from Live Keyboardist. We are here every single week, Thursday, 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. And if you're watching, you maybe just witnessed the new sort of silent countdown timer that magically got music inserted at the end. So if you've been watching for a while and you caught it, we know that you were here live. If you're watching right now, go ahead and let us know you're here. Leave us a comment in the chat. Last week, we were talking all about Led Zeppelin cover tunes. Next week, we have a special guest coming on who is using Gig Performer as his, I would say it's like his organ driver. It's like the thing he's using to play organ and a couple of other synths as well. So that's going to be a really exciting episode. Welcome, Impulse Music. Really excited to have you here. I know you're a regular attender. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome, Dave. Good to see you. We've got Myron, who is popping in, who is really excited for this one. And I can tell by his profile picture, Myron might be using Gig Performer for bass. Curious to find out. But hey, today we are here with bass player Chapman Stickist. I think I got that right. He'll have to tell me when he comes on. Alistair Begg, who's doing some pretty awesome things. I don't want to spoil too much for you guys since he is literally in the waiting room as we speak, but master in the art of bass playing, fantastic stick player, as well as making some really great Gig Performer pedal emulations, some of which are actually like VST versions of pedals, but then other ones he's kind of building on his own. Dave Bolden wrote in Stick Chap. I love it. I don't know. And Myron is playing a 12 string, which at what point does a bass become a Chapman stick? Like, how many strings do you have to have before it transforms? I don't know. If you have an opinion on that, let us know. Carl Lutz bass also here in the chat. Thanks for being here. I know you guys are here every week as well. And Glenn already has a question. Alistair is not even in yet. We'll come back to this, Glenn. So happy to have you here. So yeah, without further ado, we are going to pull in Alistair. He's going to show us through his setup, talk through what he's doing with Gig Performer, what he does with his bands. And by the way, if you happen to be in his area, he's in the UK. I don't remember where, so I don't want to misspeak. In the description below right now are the links to all of his bands, websites, Facebook pages. So if you want to check him out live, you want to see what he's doing, make sure you check out one of those links. I can't guarantee that the Throne and the Chapman Stick will be at the gig, but I can guarantee that he will be there and it will be a great time. So here we are. We're going to welcome on Alistair. Alistair, thanks for being here.
Hi there. Hi, Brett. Hi, world.
Yes, welcome to YouTube. It's the real deal. How are you today?
Suddenly very nervous.
Yeah, I feel you. It's a real deal, friends. Well, here's the good news.
So many bass players.
There are so many bass players, which, you know what? I don't even know that I knew there were so many bass players using Gig Performer, but I'm seeing like Myron's here, obviously. Carl Lutz. I got to practice saying that one is here. And then Impulse Music as well, host amp plugins. So apparently it's a thing people do. But Alistair, tell us a little bit about, I know I butchered your career, but
yeah, so did I.
So I won't tell anyone if you don't though. So what do you do when you are not live on YouTube at Backstage with Gig Performer?
Well, a little bit of teaching bass, but
yeah,
mostly gigs in theatres now.
Okay.
Which is definitely a step up from where I was 10 years ago.
Yeah, which was where?
Gigs in pubs.
Yeah.
A lot more teaching, but gigs in pubs and weddings. Yeah. Weddings are the worst.
Yeah, tell me more about that. So how long were you doing wedding music for?
Ooh, decades, really.
Yeah.
Just varying amounts of it. But there's so much. You've got to set up so early, and then there's about a decade of sitting around waiting till the speeches are finished, which is at least an hour after they say they're going to finish.
Yeah. Well, okay.
And if you're really lucky, you get a plate of sandwiches, even though they got an absolutely fantastic buffet for everyone.
Yeah. I once played a wedding gig where I guess it was like a very conservative wedding, and they hired a dance band. I mean, it was huge. I was playing keys, and they hired a dance band. It was a real thing, but no one was dancing because I guess like it was kind of against their belief system. It was unbelievably strange. Anyway, so I feel you there. But you probably learned a ton of music. Like, was that a huge learning curve for you? Did you take a lot away from that musically, or did you already know all the tunes?
We pretty much did the same tunes we would have done anywhere else.
Okay, sweet.
But
Yeah.
sculpt the slats slightly differently. Couldn't really describe how. I didn't get in on that side of
Sure.
it. Like, tell me what to play, I'll play it.
Yeah, I feel you. Okay, so weddings, all of that stuff. Now you're playing in theaters, which I guess, like, when I hear theater, I'm thinking of like musicals, but you're talking about like music venues.
Well, the venues themselves will hold. They'll put on musicals and pantomimes and theater, actual stage plays, but they also host tribute bands, which is what I'm doing most at the moment.
Yes, and Dire Straits tribute, is that correct?
Yeah. The one that's been going longest is a Dire Straits tribute called DS UK.
Okay.
And we think we're the best sounding Dire Straits tribute. Well, definitely in Britain, but possibly Europe.
Well, I've not heard.
We don't look much like them. I've never managed to be tall and thin, but we do sound good. Yeah.
So, and people can hear you. You have a gig for the Dire Straits tribute coming up at the end of this month. Is that correct?
Yeah, at least we've got one on the 20th, and I think the week after there's a whole bunch with one of the other bands, the Seriously Collins.
Sweet. So how long have you been playing bass? Like, when did that start for you? Was that like a lifetime journey, or was that a later in life journey?
Oh, yeah. I got my first bass in 1983.
Okay.
But I pretty much decided I was a bass player the year before.
Before you got your bass?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Didn't actually own a bass.
Yeah. How did you, like, so, by the way, my story is somewhat similar, which we can share at some other time. But, like, you decided you wanted to be a bass player. And, like, what was the thing that made you go, I'm going to be a bass player? Was there an album, a track, a song? Like, what was the moment that you knew?
Oh, yeah. Right. It was Lemmy.
Okay.
Believe it or not, Lemmy. But he was playing in a band called Hawkwind, which kind of space rock, so it wasn't like heavy like Motorhead. And there were some tracks on a live album they did called Space Ritual where, it would just be going around a riff for ages, and then he just sort of wander around something pentatonic, and I never heard anything like it before in my life. And there's weird space noises going behind, and the bass player's wandering off doing a solo. It's like, okay,
yes,
so I want some of that.
Yeah. So you got your first bass, 1983, 1 year after you decided you were a bassist.
Yeah.
And did you? I mean, this was pre-YouTube, right? YouTube came out in '84, I think. Was that? So, what did you learn from a book? Did you get some teachers? Like, what was your journey on that?
One of my school teachers had actually played bass professionally, so I learned some stuff from him. He lent me a whole bunch of albums, which is where I discovered King Crimson.
Okay. Yes, if you are a King Crimson
started.
fan, let us know in the comments. I know we've got a lot of King Crimson people, so if you're like all over the King Crimson, let us know. So you discovered King Crimson from your school teacher. He gave you a bunch of albums, taught you a little bit, and then what happened? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, well, after that, I just joined a band with some friends at school, and it was dreadful but brilliant all at the same time. That was great.
Yes.
Went off to university and gone into a band there, which was quite interesting. Did my first gig in front of 1,100 people, but that wasn't even with my band. I was standing in and somebody else's band for the first time. So, yeah, met the drummer on stage. That was an experience.
With a drummer on stage?
Yeah, that was the first time I met him, was just before we started playing.
Wow. So you got thrown in pretty quick. Like the turnaround from getting a bass to being on stage in front of 1,100 people. How many, or was it 1,000? 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
Wow. So what did you learn? Like, okay, for anybody who's listening right now, I love these questions because I feel like for me, and we're going to get to gig performer, but but I feel like it's so important to like know and experience like what you're in front of 1100 people, the stakes are much higher. Like what were your first
Oh, they're
couple
students. It didn't matter.
Sure, it depends how much
They're
they
on
drank
side
before the
from the
show.
get-go. It's like,
But what did you like learn? Like, were there any key takeaways of that season of gigging that made you like reshape how you think about bass? Or now I know we're getting deep, but I'm just curious.
I can't really remember. The only
Sure.
thing I really took away from that gig was I could barely see anybody because of the lights.
Yeah.
There was like a few people down the side and
Yeah.
the row at the front. You could tell there were people all the way to the back of the hall, but you couldn't see them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. So at what point did the like pedal journey start? Because for those of you who haven't checked out Alistair's gig performer in action page, is it true that you bought a van just for your pedal boards, or or is that
Not exactly, no. The band already had the van, and that kind of facilitated things when they decided to go large.
got you? Got you. So when did like the pedal board journey start?
Well, bored much later, but very early on.
Okay.
I think the first year I played bass, I got a kit for making a phaser, an Amdec phaser. I think it was a branch of Roland at the time. So it must have been basically the Boss phaser.
Yeah.
But in kit form, a slightly different shape. And you didn't have to solder very much. And my granddad had taught me how to solder, so I built this thing and it sounded fantastic.
Yes.
And I think one of the classes at school actually included be able to, you could make something like that. So I made some kind of distortion pedal, which I have no idea what happened to that.
Yes. I kind of forgot when we were chatting last time that not only do you have an unbelievable gig performer pedal board setup, but you also sometimes just build your own pedals, just like actual pedals that you can physically hold and touch.
Yeah, sometimes makes it sound far more often than it actually happened.
Okay.
I think in my entire life I've built 4.
Okay. Okay. I know you had mentioned occasionally you like will swap parts out or something because you were saying it's much more more cost effective to build them yourself occasionally.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
If somebody's made a clone of a pedal, it'll cost a lot less than buying the real thing.
Gotcha. So how long, well, first of all, if you had to roughly estimate how many pounds, I guess you don't think in pounds, if you had to roughly estimate the weight of your gear, what would you say that it was pre-gig performer? If you had to take a rough guess.
Okay, no, I've weighed some of it. Right, when I was doing the whole rig, I've actually got this information written down somewhere. But,
Okay.
The amp, I think, was about, no, I can't remember. 45 maybe? No. Can I look at this up?
It maybe is in the gig performer in action article. I have a vague memory of it. But in any case, the volume was like if you took a certain set of speakers, you actually couldn't take your pedal board. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I have an estate car, and it was getting to the point where we were, as a band, taking PA with us, and my car was the one that would fit the subs. And if those went in, I couldn't fit as much in, and it's like, what do I want to compromise? I mean, the first thing that wouldn't fit is the sack truck that made the pedal board bearable.
Yes. So, well, this is absolutely fascinating. So, I know you're still working on the weight there, but do you know roughly how long you did that for? Like, how long were you carrying that gear, and when did you switch to gig performer?
About 5 years, I think, with that particular setup.
Okay.
Might have been a bit longer. And gig performer over lockdown.
Okay. So was the gig performer transition meant to remedy the issue of just not wanting to carry so much? Like, what got you curious about it? How did you hear about it?
I think I'd heard rumblings about it for a few years before, probably shortly after it came out. But what really caught my interest was Trey Gunn's demonstration videos.
Yeah.
Because I was interested in what he was doing, and then just saw how the program wired up and thought, wow, that means I can do this.
Yeah. Yes.
Whereas using the other program, it was incredibly difficult.
What program were you using?
Oh, Main Stage.
Okay.
I don't like to mention
it. The program that shall not be named.
That's what I was thinking. I have some weights for you, and in metric and imperial.
Oh, there you go.
So the amp I was using, £40.
Wow.
The speaker, when I was only carrying one, was 98. The other speaker, which I didn't carry very often, was 59.
Okay.
But the pedal board, £93.
Wow.
Yeah. You get children smaller than that.
Yeah. There are lots of children small. There are some grown-ups smaller than that. Not many, I guess. But so you've replaced, when you travel now, like, are you still bringing speakers? Are you running everything direct in? Like, what are you actually bringing with you when you play?
Well, for my own gear, there's obviously the computer and the interface, which you probably can't see. Well, you can't see the computer because you're inside it.
Right.
But the interface is at the side of me here in a little SKB rack.
Okay.
Laptop will live in the top of it.
Yeah.
So that and the instruments, floor pedal, enormous bag of leads.
Enormous what?
Bag of leads.
Gotcha.
Because you've got to connect it all together.
Right. Yes. Yes.
It's all smaller, but it still needs the same amount of leads to connect it all.
Right. So you travel with significantly less weight.
Oh yes.
Yeah, which is phenomenal.
I'm usually traveling with other members of the band now. It keeps the cost down to have as many in the car as possible. So it's a balance of how many people and how much gear you can get in.
That's exactly right. Have you managed to convert any of your band members to gig performer yet?
No, not yet.
Yeah, we gotta work on this. I'm like, if they're watching, this is our call to action. Yeah. People who play with Alistair, let's get you all on gig performer and playing.
I have converted a former band member.
Gotcha.
Hi, Robbie.
Which instrument?
Keyboard.
Gotcha. All right. I think we have some questions coming in a little bit here. I'm seeing, but I do want to then jump over to your setup. So, okay. Let's see here. Well, I guess the first question is, how long has it taken you to learn the Chapman stick? Which I guess is probably, I mean, how long has it been? Are you still learning? Like, where are you at?
I think I started in 2008, and I can only answer that one when I finish learning it.
There you go.
How long.
There you go. Okay, so there's that. Let's see.
Maybe more useful answer is I actually started taking it to gigs within a month.
Okay, yeah.
Wasn't doing anything very complicated, but just take it with me, start playing it, do it, get on with it.
Yeah, there's something about that though, right? Like there's something about just doing what you can with what you have, and your skills just develop exponentially faster than if you're like waiting until you're ready. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole different thing playing it in front of an audience than sitting at home playing.
Yeah, David, who is here right now, but he always says, like, if we had waited in Gig Performer to include every feature that people wanted, it would never be released. And I think there's like a similar tie there with performing. It's like, you're always learning, you're always growing. If you wait until some, arbitrary moment in time, then you just never end up playing. Okay. Glenn wants to know if you've used any other foot controller other than the Morley. And if so, how do you like it? I've
never used a Morley.
There you go. So fantastic. What foot controller are you using?
Hang on. One of these, Soft Step.
Step.
That's an M Audio.
And wait, so Soft Step is there, and what's the foot pedal?
It's just the M Audio expression pedal, but it could be anything.
Perfect. And you're mostly using the expression pedal for volume, I assume, or are you using that for effects and phasing and wah and I don't know what you're doing.
Volume.
Mostly,
but occasionally sort of doing swells with reverb tails and that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk about Gig Performer. I'm like, we can talk about your career all day. It's absolutely
I'd really
fascinating.
rather you didn't.
Yes. You know what though? This is important for people to hear. Like, there are pro musicians who are insanely talented, who are making their living playing, who are touring, that are just musicians who are doing it. You may not know who they are, you may not know what they're doing, but like, this is part of the gig. Like, not every musician is, on the top 100 tracks. Many of them don't even want to be there.
No, I never wanted to be famous, and I've been spectacularly successful at that.
Fantastic. I love it. Gosh. Okay. So tell us a little bit about, so you moved to Gig Performer during lockdown, which I assume also means you bought a bunch of VSTs during lockdown.
Well, I had quite a few already.
Did you? Were you recording? How did you end up starting to collect your VSTs? Main stage you used. That shall not be mentioned.
Well, it started in lessons that I just wanted my lessons to sound a bit more like bass really sounds. So rather than DIing in, I wanted some kind of amplifier. So I got hold of Amplitube and used that, and you could have a stereo signal path through that. So I could have me on one side and the student in the other. But it didn't have all of the sounds I wanted.
Right.
And I like synthesizers as well. So eventually ended up with the main stage and ran with that at gigs for quite a few years. So I was using the massive pedal board, but one of the things it would do was click a button and it would send signals to the computer, either from the melody side or the bass side of the stick, or the bass, whichever was going through at the time. And then MIDI guitar would turn that into MIDI, which would fire the synths. A lot of fun.
And are you regularly playing synths in your current projects on bass?
Not in the current ones, but I was at the time.
Okay, awesome. And you're using MIDI guitar for that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you jumped into Gig Performer. Was there something that made you go, like, what made you leave main stage?
When I tried to work out how to do echo and reverb tails. So I wanted it, when I switched away from my delay sound, that the delays that were already happening would continue. I wanted to do that, and the only way to do that was with some really confusing routing using buses, especially when the sound from the echo was then going into a reverb as well. So it was just, I just couldn't picture it with sliders and buses. Just visualizing how to get the signal to go where I wanted to is mind crushing.
So it was the visual routing combined with the ability to get like reverb tails when you switch patches.
Yeah. That was the first thing.
Okay. Was there more?
Well, I mean, once I had the program, you realize just how much you can do.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so you build Rackspaces in Gig Performer like I have never seen before.
It was lockdown. I had time on my hands.
You did. Well, and you've also now managed to make them. So for those of you who are watching, if you're on our newsletter, you'll see it there. But Alistair has a Gig Performer in Action article, as well as 2, I believe, Rackspaces that he has currently shared. However, what Alistair's about to show you is the 3.0. This is the highest tech of Gig Performer pedal boards. Do you mind if I put your computer screen on so we can look at Gig Performer?
Go for it.
All right. So
I find an interesting one.
Talk to us about what you've got going on here. Yeah. So this is unbelievable. I've never ever seen in my life anything in Gig Performer that looks this accurate. Unreal. Unreal. So tell us what we're looking at here.
Hours. That's what you're looking at.
Yeah, sure.
Really. Sure. So, I mean, right, most of the stuff on these blue panels is pedals I actually own.
Okay.
Or recreations of them. The sounds inside are as close as I can get, and the pictures are as close as I can get. Although
Yeah,
this
and you
one's
did
just a tiny little slice of one pedal.
you did have a particular request, I believe, about widgets. I don't remember what it was. What were you saying you wish you could do?
Oh, I don't remember.
Was it changing a widget color so you could get it to match? Was it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, there's a few different styles of knob that I would like that would make these perfect.
Yes,
Like
yes.
these Boss recreations here. I've got a widget on top of another widget because it looks a bit like a Boss knob now. But actually having the right shape would be much easier.
Yes, got you.
But,
So this is another level. So wait, hold
yeah.
on. For that delay pedal, you have 2 layered widgets. Is that true?
Yep.
And are they grouped together, or you
They
don't
are. They
need...
move together.
Okay.
So
Wow. Amazing.
yeah. Otherwise, the little white line wouldn't move.
Right.
Because you're more likely to hit the silver bit than the black bit when you're trying to move it.
Yes. And this is like your, or correct me if I'm wrong here, this is what you use when you're at home and you're trying to get easy access to sounds that you can play around with, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
But you don't use this when
too
you're
much
playing.
processor to want to risk it a gig.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you put a few of these on and it's starting to cook.
Also, can you tell everybody what you're running this on? What computer are you using for this?
Right, it's a MacBook Pro from mid 2012, so that's before the Retinas.
Yep. So
it's quite elderly.
It's elderly. Oh my gosh. Okay, I love it. So, and you run this on your gigs. Obviously, you don't run this particular panel. Do you use this as a starting place? Do you start here and just move over what you need to move over?
Usually, although I've got quicker with what I need now. So sometimes I've already got a more cut down panel that's already nearly there.
Yeah.
I'll use that.
Gotcha. Also, I feel like it's important to mention that if you were wanting to use MainStage now on your machine, you would not be able to use the latest version.
Oh.
You couldn't actually upgrade with your 2012 computer. So for any old computer users, if you, like Alistair, have an elderly computer, know that you can indeed install the latest versions of Gig Performer, and Gig Performer is compatible with older systems. So that's a little nice thing Gig Performer does. So what is going on in the wiring view? I'm a little bit afraid to ask, but I'm also very curious.
Oh, this is where it gets a lot of fun.
Okay.
I mean, this is pretty, and it makes it nice to work with, but
yes,
the real clever stuff is back here.
Okay.
So it's a bit spread out, but even if I zoom all the way, I still have to scroll the last bit.
Wow.
So there's a lot of bypass plugins.
Wow. So there is a signal flow. Like it's not, everything's not running one-on-one. You have these in a specific order.
Yeah.
Which I assume you chose intentionally. Does this mirror what you were doing with your hardware?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Although even with the hardware, I had a controller pedal called a G2, and it was possible to move where a pedal was in the order in any patch.
Okay.
So that got quite useful with the stick, because it was, I sort of had it split in half, and the first few loops in the G2 were for one side of the stick, the next few were for the other side, and you could switch a pedal from either side. So I'd have one modulation pedal, like one chorus, and I could have it on either side of the stick, but not both at the same time.
Gotcha. So this would allow you to have both if you wanted it.
Absolutely, but I don't think you would, because it would sound messy.
Right. Makes sense. Wow. So if you had to guess, just out of curiosity,
okay,
what is the total time in on this Rackspace?
Oh, maybe a week.
Okay. Yeah. Can you zoom in or zoom out? Oh yeah. Can you show us the most zoomed out version that you can possibly give us? I know that
Would that be auto zoom? Because
I
I
think
hit the
just
wrong
hit,
one once, and it was a nightmare to get them back into
yeah,
place.
maybe just hit the minus button.
Yeah. Okay.
Woo! Yeah, amazing. I love it. So, are using those comments to just remind you what's
Oh,
going on?
yeah. Some of the more complicated pedal recreations, I'm using a lot of, well, multiple widgets and blocks to make one pedal.
Okay.
So, for
So,
instance, this bit here
yep.
is just doing a bass fuzz pedal. It's based on a Maestro Brassmaster.
Okay. And what are you using to create that? It looks like you've got an EQ and what's that
Yeah.
effector?
Hang on, this does not look right. That's not the latest version of it.
Oh,
I thought
okay.
I'd drop that in here, but clearly I didn't save it.
Okay.
Yeah, so this has just got that fuzz, but that's not quite as accurate sounding as a different one. No, okay, let me show you what this
Gotcha.
looks like now, because I've got my workings somewhere. Right. This is how it works now.
Okay.
So this was just when I was signal testing. So it just has the inputs from there.
Right. I forgot about the signal test. Let's come back to that in a second because I think that could be fascinating for some people. So you've got audio coming in, and then you're using effector, and that's for fuzz? That's a fuzz pedal?
That should be an amplitude. I clearly didn't save something along the line.
Which is totally fine. I'm like, you'll have to go back and find them.
Yeah,
but...
and there should be something in this path as well.
Gotcha,
I hope I haven't lost it because it took a while.
So for those of you who or her, I mean, I actually didn't really ever think to do this. So you have a particular method that you use to try and recreate sounds. Which actually I think Jet Durham mentioned he does something similar. But tell me what your method is about getting these sound recreations.
Well, most of the time it's fairly easy. You can find a plugin that's basically the right sound, and then it just needs a bit of EQ, or you have to find some, the real pedal's got a feature that your emulation doesn't, so you have to drop it in like a direct path that you can blend in that isn't on the emulation.
Right.
And in the case of this one, the direct path has the top rolled off. So when it blends into the distortion, there aren't high frequencies in the clean path, which helps the distortion fit a bit better.
Yes.
So that one was quite easy. And then it all comes back into a mixer, which is the bypass button.
Gotcha.
And, it turns out it's better to have it after rather than before. So that was an interesting thing to learn.
Gotcha. Interesting. And then were you using like a signal analyzer?
Yeah, I don't do that very often. It's just this one pedal's been bugging me.
Gotcha.
The EQ is particularly weird, but
gotcha.
I did manage to nail it all, and lots of research on the internet. There are like DIY pedal forums where they were discussing, what frequencies are boosted when you put the switch in a certain position, and just comparing it to the sound of my pedal, it turns out that if I doubled that frequency, it would sound right.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of a learning curve just in terms of what the pedal is actually doing and then going ahead and recreating it. Can you demo any of these sounds for us, either on the stick or on the bass?
Yeah, sure.
I know you were saying that this is not one that you often take to a gig, but like, or if you can't show us this one, any one that you want to demo.
Yeah, why not? I think I've got the bass wide into this. Let me just... Oh, no, okay.
Also, that's a pretty quick fix. When you're like you're not sure the bass is going through it, you just drew one cable in and now it's plugged in.
Yeah, and I know why the updates aren't in this. This is actually I probably loaded the wrong one in. This is just a gig that I've put together just specifically to do this live stream, and I think I put the corrections in the real one.
Ah, gotcha.
Which it's wired slightly differently on the outputs.
Gotcha.
Just wanted everything to work.
Gotcha.
So I mean, that's the sound I would use absolutely the most. It's just the bass, a little bit of compression, and the amplifier. Which doesn't do a lot. I mean, if you hear it without.
What is your favorite compressor? What is your?
It's an EBS multi-comp.
Okay.
I went shopping to get a compressor pedal and tried the one I thought I was going to get, which is a very nice emulation. It was basically a pedal version of an 1176.
Okay.
But with a couple of features that made it more bass friendly, and I thought that's going to be the one. It sounds great in all the YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
Tried it, and it just didn't sit right with the way I play. You know, when it was starting to make the right sound, it then just sounded too colourful.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "What else have you got?" And he brought out the multi-comp, and it's got two knobs and a switch. I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. And I couldn't get a bad sound out of it.
Yeah.
You know, everything I tried, it's like, okay, yeah, that, but less of it, and it'll be fine.
Wow. So that's what you ended up getting, and now you're using a VST version.
Well, I'm using a VST that sounds just like it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It certainly.
Can you send us a little bit more of your bass?
Yeah, sure. I need to go over here. Right, that's all.
That's great.
Everything.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Wow. So that was clean. And then what kind of a bass are you playing, Alistair?
It's a Padula.
Okay.
The guy retired a couple of years ago, so they're not making them anymore.
Okay. Wow. Fantastic. Okay. What's maybe something a little bit more unusual that you do on Gig Performer with bass? I mean, I say unusual. What's something a little more processed?
Maybe like.
Wow. Wow.
Clicking.
So what is
probably my fingers?
What is that? What are we hearing? It sounded like that the Hoots Who. Oh, ba ba. Can't even remember what song it is I'm thinking of. What do you use the sound for?
I don't use it for anything anymore. But when I was in a function band, we would play a version of 500 Miles by the Proclaimers, and then it would segue into Moni Moni.
Mm-hmm.
And for the transition, I mean, it was on stick, but I'd just play that whilst the other song set itself up, and then switch out. Yeah, I like that.
Wow. Wow, that's fantastic. So
yeah, that sound.
And what are you using to get that sound?
Almost everything. So I'm using the fuzz pedal I mentioned earlier. That doesn't sound quite right, but it's close enough for this.
Yes.
And then what am I going into? Neutron envelope filter pedal, which is probably my favourite pedal.
Okay.
It's the one that goes quack. A little bit of chorus.
Okay.
I'm surprised the compressor's off, but it is, and then delay and reverb.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like somebody's pressing a button on a keyboard. It's amazing. Which
I wonder if any clicking sound is because my microphone is here and I'm kind of leaning on it when I'm playing. So you'll hear the acoustic sound coming
through your mic.
Yeah,
very well could be. I think we still get the essence.
Yeah, although this sound is the one that uses the most processor.
Yes. Which you're also, at the same time that you're playing all of this, using the same device for a stream and the same device for a second monitor. Is that true?
Yeah, but I did put the latency, the buffer size up a bit to give myself a chance.
So, wow. So you don't do this for gigs usually. What can you give us an example of a Rackspace you might use when you're playing?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is for your Dire Straits cover band.
Yeah. And, this has a picture of everything that would get used during the gig. Just because I thought, well, that's how the pedal board would be in real life.
Yes.
It's completely unnecessary.
Right.
I'm not even sure all of the widgets are connected. But it's just, if people come up and talk to me, they can look at this.
Mm-hmm. What do you use for a display?
Sorry?
Do you keep your laptop off to the side of the stage and just use your pedals, or what do you do for visual feedback?
It's usually behind me, just because the leads won't reach the mixer if I don't. But for visual feedback, well, I didn't used to have any at all. I mean, originally I had the floor pedals set up so I'd have a different patch on each button.
Gotcha.
And a written set list of each song, it would tell me which button to press for the right song. Mm-hmm. I do it like that. Mm-hmm. So my visual feedback would be, okay, which button's lit up on the pedal.
Right.
But now I've just got an up and down, and using an OSC program to send stuff to the iPad, which shows me which song I'm on, which song I just did, which one's coming up next, and some stuff about which buttons are in play. Which is why this is here. This is just here, well, to look pretty, but the written bits actually send information to the OSC thing.
Gotcha. Which you are not an OSC master. You
I barely get it at all.
But how did you get the OSC? What did you do to acquire that information?
I was on the forum, and somebody kindly said, "Try this," and so I did.
Yep. And do you use setlist view, or are you mostly in Rackspace land?
At gigs, setlist all the way.
Okay.
So much easier.
Awesome. And I guess that makes it easier then as well to not have to worry about using all of the buttons to change songs, because you can set the song order ahead of time and then go where you need to go.
Yeah, that usually works, except when things go a bit random.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then and how do you? It's a little bit more complicated, and you end up tap dancing, but
yes. Does that happen often for you?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Sweet. So you have two main sounds for this DS UK. What are they, and what are you doing?
Well, the main one is just going into an amplifier with a bit of compression, and the amp sim has a little valve power amp sim after it to make it sound even more like the right amplifier. Mm-hmm. Not the one the guy in Dire Straits used, the one I would use. And then for the more 80s songs, a bit of chorus.
Wow. The bass harmonics through a chorus sound unbelievably good.
Yeah.
And that's
is that actually really the wrong bass for the Dire Straits stuff. It's got too many strings and it's a bit softer.
Yeah. But is that really it? Like you use the main and the main alchemy, and that's basically what you do to get through the whole gig?
That's except there are a couple of songs where it wasn't Dire Straits' bass player on the album. In fact, on two of them, it was Tony Levin.
Wow.
You can imagine things get a bit more interesting when Tony Levin's there.
Absolutely. So what do you do for that?
Right. Well, first of all, I'm going to mute it because otherwise that's going to thump.
I was or in our first meeting, Alistair, I was saying, when you're dealing with somebody who's a pro because they have a Rackspace that just mutes their stuff.
Yeah, in a gig I have 3, one at the beginning of the set, one for the intermission, and one at the end.
So even that is automated, which is pretty great. Hey, do
so
you use the tuner, the built-in tuner in Gig Performer?
No, I've got a Peterson running on this. Oh, it won't reach if I unplug it on phone there.
Gotcha.
Might want to plug that back in again, actually. Well, it doesn't look like it's doing anything if it's not got a signal, but
there
yeah,
you go.
it's,
oh, I see.
Oh,
I see.
That should.
And you take that with you to your gigs. You use your phone.
Yep.
Why do you use that? Is it just ingrained into your practices?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a Peterson tuner pedal, but fitting an actual pedal into this setup it's just not convenient.
Right.
Whereas the phone works well with the computer. You use the USB cable to power it, and the app is really good.
Oh, there you go.
So
there you go.
It just sits nicely in front of the computer.
Gotcha. All right. So this is for the Tony Levin stuff.
Yeah. So there's one that's quite slappy, and it's got buckets of compression on it. So I'm using this MXR compressor.
Okay.
And it just squashes the sound so much.
Yes.
And that's quite authentic.
Wow. So this is crazy. Hey, did you ever try the Gig Performer tuner, or you've just stuck with your? You did.
Yeah. Oh, I tried it.
What made you decide?
I prefer strobe tuner.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So if it did strobe tuner, I might be using it. But,
gotcha. There you go. Sweet. Wow. So that even sounds great. All of these sounds, I mean, your panels look amazing, but the sounds are really functional, right? Which obviously is the most important part. So what are you doing with the stick? Like, do you have any Rackspaces that are set up just for that? I know you had mentioned you're doing some MIDI to synthesizer conversions.
Yeah. Well, I have them, but I won't be using them at the gig.
Gotcha.
Because we have a keyboard player.
Gotcha. Which we're secretly trying to get rid of this keyboard player. Is that true?
No, not really.
Trying to. Sorry, I shouldn't say that on the internet.
It's not that at all. I mean, we were doing some of these songs in the function band before, and I always wanted to learn how to play the keyboards on them so we could ditch the backing track.
Right.
So from then, I sort of started to work on it to see if I, at least as a proof of concept, and
yes,
that's more or less where it is still at the moment.
Yes. So for those of us like me who are not well versed in what is actually happening on a Chapman stick, can you give us a basic lowdown of what's happening?
Okay. Do I have a patch that doesn't do weird stuff to it? Yes. So they can come in 10 or 12 strings. This one's 10. My mouth is so dry. And there's 5 bass strings, which are tuned in fifths, and thickest one's in the middle. And then 5 melody strings, which are tuned in fourths, much like most of a guitar. And the thickest one's in the middle.
Gotcha.
But then your hands are sort of coming from either side, so it makes sense.
Yes. Yes. Woo! Ah! I love it. So you can replace the guitar player and the bass player. Does it count if you're replacing yourself, or does that not count?
Oh, it counts.
Fantastic.
2-handed bass lines have got so much energy.
Yeah. Yeah. So wow, this is all of the things are happening. So first of all, I'm assuming you have 2 pickups. Is that true on the Chapman stick?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see that now. So, yeah, in this one there's 2 each side.
Gotcha.
But other versions of this, 1 each side. But yes, separate pickup for those 5 and these 5.
Gotcha. And they run mono out, or you just have one cable?
1 cable, but stereo.
Gotcha.
Oh, that is just not in focus, is it? But
yeah, it's enough. So it's a stereo cable.
Yeah.
Which you then plug in, and then Gig Performer receives both sides.
Yeah.
And then you process them separately.
Absolutely. Well, you don't have to, but that's the way I like it.
Wow.
Many players just treat the thing as a whole unified fingerboard.
Okay.
It's like 2 acoustic guitars having a fight. It's brilliant. But that's not how I want to play. The way I think is, okay, I'm basically a bass player, but I just like to add some other textures as well when I can.
Gotcha. Yeah, so, okay. Oh, this is amazing. And so you've got MIDI bass there. Do you have any patches that demo that?
Oh, not MIDI bass at the moment, no.
Okay. Wow. Go ahead. What were you saying?
It doesn't always track well when you're playing the whole instrument because the vibrations
they trigger the
other
notes
stuff. And because it's mono, you lose the note you had in the first place.
Right.
So I would use it more, and when they make it polyphonic, and that doesn't happen anymore, I'll use it a lot.
Yes. Wow. Okay, awesome.
I've been waiting for an update for over a year.
Yeah, they did mention that they were maybe going to do one. Is that true?
Yeah. They said, yeah, our roadmap for 2021 includes.
Gotcha. Yeah, sometimes things get delayed. So, so this is your panel. This one is a clean panel. Do you have anything that is a processed panel, or what do you have going on here?
Oh,
I don't know.
Missed a note. Yeah.
Yes. Well, okay. Wow. Fascinating. Very impressive. So you really can, with this particular setup, play the synth and the bass same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I had experiments. There's one bit in the keyboard solo towards the end of it that. And there's bass notes in it, and I was trying to work out how to, do that so I could trigger the right note off it, or that hand, and it was just horrible.
It's because of the direction, right? Like on keyboard, that makes a ton of sense, but because of the direction of the strings and the direction of the melody line combined with the bass notes, it's just...
Yeah, but the worst thing was the vibration of the instrument would untrigger the notes, so I would just lose the bass note out of it. So that was no good. Right. So I just programmed up the floor pedal. So if you look at the little picture of it here, I've got some notes.
Yes.
But the actual widgets here are the ones that trigger. So when I want to do that bit... Just...
Yes.
Oh... Can't remember how that goes now.
Yes. But I think we're getting the heart of it. So you've triggered... You're using your foot pedal for those notes. That's true?
Yeah, it's just sending out a CC, but the widgets are turning it into a MIDI note.
Which can be done through the MIDI in block, right?
Yeah, I think that's what I did, yeah.
Yeah. So, friends, if you have any questions about anything that you're seeing or hearing from Alistair, feel free to put them in the comments. We would love to have him answer, because these are... This is pretty...
Because at the moment, I think unique. I'm the only person interested in any of this.
I think you're inspiring a new generation of gig performer users. I think that's what's happening. This is just, it's like another level of what's possible. And is that, by the way, I guess I always like to ask this question. Is that how you end up with this? Do you just kind of think, I wonder if I could do this, and then try it? Is that the whole process?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I want to do that. How do I get
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. I love that.
Usually end up doing something completely different from where I started.
Which there's also something beautiful about that, isn't there? Like, something's got to get you started.
Yeah.
You know, and then
one thing I like about Gig Performer is it just gives you so many ways to achieve the same result.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was reading on the forum, there was a bloke on there that had an amazingly complicated way of getting where he needed to, but it's how his thought process worked, and it works for him. It's like, and we're all looking at it thinking, why? But this doesn't matter. It works.
Yeah, it is. It just becomes whatever works for you is what you have to do. And Gig Performer does give you multiple ways to achieve the same thing. Glenn is declaring that he is not switching to a Chapman, but he does love your workflow. So yes, thank you for that. What else? Actual Kevin has a question. Have you worked with MIDI files playing back as well?
No.
Why is that?
Because someone else in the band does that.
There you go.
I don't need to. Like
that's
in
a great
DSU
answer.
key, we have a few bits that are on track, and the drummer triggers it.
Yes. Most, I don't know. It I guess depends on like what style of music you're playing, but when you can get rid of your tracks, that's kind of nice, isn't it?
Well, it's nice to know everything's going to go the speed you want it to.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have anything else set up for anything that you want to show or demonstrate? I've got 24 Rackspaces there, so I don't know what you've got going on.
Well, just one little thing on this one. I won't attempt to play the song this time because I don't know how that went this afternoon when I tried, but that's probably not even the right key. But you know what I was saying about fading in a reverb?
Yeah.
So the foot, and when I get to there, it's pretty much just all reverb and no note.
Yes.
I don't know how loud that is. It's quite quiet in my ears, but
it's I think we're able to hear it. So this is fascinating to me. So you're turning up the decay time, is that true? And then also the volume?
Loads of it looks like, yeah, definitely the volume.
Okay.
Oh, they were labeled a minute ago.
And you have some of those widgets inverted.
Yeah, and the pedal's going backwards as well, so I'm put back on it at the moment for the rest position is all the way forwards where it would normally be when the volume was up.
Yeah,
otherwise it's confusing.
And you're running this all on a 10-year-old computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. And this is your gigging computer. This is what you take with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really need to upgrade.
I love it. But it's more like your need to upgrade just comes from the technology being available. Like when you're playing, you're not having any issues. It's running just fine. Is that true?
No, it's quite lean at a gig. So there's very little memory pressure, and it's not really hitting the processor very hard either.
Yeah. Are you using predictive loading, or you don't need to?
Don't need to.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Fascinating. So this, you've got those are they all controlling the same VST, the decay, dry volume, and bass, or are they controlling different?
I doubt it.
Okay, cool. Cool. So you're using the widgets to bring multiple things together, right? Like those widgets are making one result from a couple of different plugins. It looks like you've got that's a mixer plugin, right?
Yeah, two of them are on a mixer plugin. Right. Yeah, so one's pulling the send to the reverb up and taking dry signal out. And then that one is increasing the decay time.
Yep. And this is very easy to do in Gig Performer.
Yeah.
Which you were having an issue doing this in the program that shall not be mentioned.
I wouldn't have even tried this.
Okay. Yeah. Well, just because of processing or because of just the routing complications?
It was a little bit chunkier on the processor, but it was mostly about the routing.
Gotcha.
And this one isn't particularly complicated because the reverb is always there, so I don't need to switch it out.
Gotcha.
But when I do, it gets a bit. Oh, that was the wrong one. Let me find what I do with the delays and reverbs there. Mind if it's own that thing?
Are you looking for a particular, or did you find it?
Yeah, we're here. I just wanted it a bit bigger.
Gotcha.
So what I do is use this little matrix of things to get the delay. Got a dry signal that comes through and through.
Okay.
Then an affected signal I can add in.
Mm-hmm.
And then both of those get mixed out to the reverb and then back in. And that means whenever I switch either of the effects off or switch my sound out of the effect, the overspill is still there. So this is letting me keep the tails of the echoes and the reverbs without actually changing Rackspace at all. Because it's easy if you do that. You just use the these things, the
Gotcha.
output fading here.
Yes.
But if you're keeping it all in one Rackspace, that's the way. Well, that's a way. I'm sure there are others.
Yes. So it's like you turn the send off, but the signal is still coming through. Is it, in summary, that's how that's working?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And then are you... So, can you open the send, the bass delay send? So you're taking... Oh, okay. So you do have them routed separately. It's...
Yeah.
And the 1 and 2, though, is going... So you... Coming out of the bass delay send, you're sending channels 1 and 2 to both on the bass verb send. So that you're, doubling that signal. Oh, I see. In case you want the delay.
You're going to want the clean signal going to
the
reverb.
Right.
But of course, when this bypasses, you only get this side going anywhere.
Right.
So you don't get any of that.
Right. Yeah. It's the concept is simple, but you do have to think through it because you need to know exactly what's going through. Right, in order to create something useful. Here's a question. Well, I guess, have one final question for you, but for anyone who is watching that has any other questions, we're coming to about an hour here. We're actually just crossed over an hour. So if you have any last-minute questions for Alistair, let us know. Throw them in the comments because we'd love to have him answer. Did you have one more thing you wanted to show us? I feel like you were mid-thought. I cut you off.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be that. That's the point. Right. The most important thing about the whole setup is the levels. Because so many of these effects are dynamic. They respond to how loud the signal is. You've got to get it right. It's got to be loud enough, but not so loud that it'll distort when you start hammering the instrument. And for bass, that's quite... for guitar, it doesn't put out that much output.
So tell us your process for this. What do you do? So you have these things that open. You've made a widget that opens both of them.
Yep, a couple of meters, an input meter, just so that I can get my input levels. So I just have a little test routine. I play some notes and try and get it somewhere near this point on the meter, which is calibrated to -18. So if it's around there, it's about a -18 dB signal. And then when I'm working on the effects, I try and keep a zero gain path through the whole thing, so that unless it needs to get louder, it comes out the other end the same volume it went in. So I don't give the engineer any surprises.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I getting my input levels consistent between the different instruments, which I mean, the interface has 8 volume knobs on it, so each channel can get a volume. Then the same level of signal will hit the effects, so the distortions will all distort the same. So if I play a little bit harder, it'll get grittier by the same amount, whatever I'm playing. Or I mean, even more dramatically on the Neutron, if you don't get the levels right on that, it doesn't do anything. But when it's right, it's very yeah, it goes quack nicely. Let's get rid of everything else. Just put that one. Ooh, that doesn't sound right. So this is the other version of the.
This is your 1.0.
Yeah. There we go. Neutron 3. Right. So this is what it sounds like when it's not quite right. So that's not matching. I go to this one. You know what I haven't done? Check my volume. Because I've been using the 5-string and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really nice sound.
I'm not sure that's the best demonstration I've ever done. No, I'm not hearing that at all. That's rubbish.
So what I think is particularly noteworthy about this setup here is like you have the most important parameters on the front. So you're not having to open it up every time. You can see your inputs, you can see your outputs, and you can tweak what you need to tweak because you've mapped these widgets.
Yeah, I mean, this one, there are far more parameters than I need.
Sure.
And if I pull that up and actually go on the effect, I mean, there's a whole knob there that you just don't need to worry about.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
There we go.
What was the difference? What knob did you just touch?
Oh, it was just the up-down knob, but
Yeah.
I think the more important thing was in this position. Up, low. Oh, today this one sounds better.
There you go. So
I'm quite quiet in my ears, and it's probably making me play dynamically differently.
Oh, sure. Here's a question for you. The plugin you just opened, was that the Neutron plugin?
It's Amplitude's emulation of a Neutron, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's pretty good as long as you get the in and out volumes right. But
yes.
If you just go 0 dB in and out,
yes.
It just doesn't even make the thing move.
Right. Yeah. So input and output level, that's part of your gig prep routine. When you arrive, that's what you do.
Yeah, and didn't do it for the stream, and look what happened.
Yeah, there you go. Well, here's a question I ask everybody, Alistair, but I'm wondering what your thought is. So, like, if Gig Performer, you're brand new, you've just used it, what would be your number one piece of advice or tip that you would give to a new Gig Performer user to help them get started on the right foot?
Oh, go and watch all the videos and go on the forum.
Yeah.
I know everyone says it, but it's just so true.
Yeah, absolutely. The forum is
it's
really
one of the
good.
best I'm on of all the things I've got interested in and joined the forums for. The Gig Performer one is friendlier, it's very vibrant. The developers are there and answer stuff. I mean, that's priceless.
Yep. Absolutely. How many forums would you say you're on, Alistair? I feel like you're a forum person.
I've lost count.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Alistair, thanks for coming on and showing us this. This is like another level of gig performer musical mastery. So really appreciate your time. Friends, thank you so much for being with us. If there are any last minute questions that come in, I will stop. But for now, thank you guys so much. We'll be back next week with special guest Miko Patama. And Alistair, thank you for sharing all of this with us. This was really wonderful.
I hope somebody found it useful.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, friends. See you all next Thursday at 11:30.